Hey Team Bio, welcome to your screencast on evolution. We're going to quickly review some of the big ideas that we discussed today in class when we went over the Galapagos finch evolution questions. Okay, so before we dive into it, let's get some common language going on here. So a gene. A gene is a location on a chromosome. All species, all organisms of the same species share the same genes. This is a little bit different than the colloquial or like everyday use of the word gene. So when we talk about genes in biology, we're talking about a location on a chromosome, and organisms that are of the same species, they all share the same genes. Now, when we talk about genes in everyday life, usually what we're actually talking about is alleles, which is very confusing. Alleles are a sequence of DNA bases at a gene. And organisms of the same species have all different alleles. So, for example, we are all Homo sapiens, we're humans, we all share the same genes, but what makes us different are our alleles, the sequence of DNA bases at our gene locations on our chromosomes. Okay, we'll talk more about this later when we discuss kind of the structure and function of DNA. Okay, evolution, we're going to define it as the change, or triangle, delta, in allele frequencies in a population over time. So when the allele frequencies change from one generation to the next, that population experiences evolution. And fitness is not our colloquial definition of fitness. It's not how fast you are, how strong you are. It's the number of offspring surviving to reproductive age. So in biology class, when we say an organism has high fitness, it means that it's had a lot of babies. Okay, so gene location on the chromosome, allele, the sequence of DNA bases at that spot on the chromosome. Evolution is the change in allele frequencies over time, and fitness is the number of offspring that an organism has. Okay, so conditions for evolution. In order for evolution to occur, a few things have to be true. Heritable variation must exist within a population. So heritable variation within a population. What this means is that This means that in a population of organisms of the same species, they're not all the same. There are some differences. And those differences are heritable, meaning that they're encoded within their DNA, so they can be passed on to their offspring. Okay, so we have to have heritable variation. We have to have overproduction of offspring. and we have to have competition for scarce resources. Okay, when these three things occur, then individuals that are well suited to the present environment and I'm going to underline present because it's like the current situation, the present environment will survive and reproduce. These organisms will have high fitness. Meaning they have a lot of babies. Okay, if we look at a population over generations, if the generation 2 has different allele frequencies, then Gen 1, oops, this is a giant eraser, then generation 1, then we know evolution has occurred. Okay, so let's actually look at some populations of mice. And we're going to look and see how evolution occurs in a population of mice. Okay, so here you have a mouse population. There's a coat color gene. So all these mice share a coat color gene. It's in the same location on all their chromosomes, and there are two different alleles within this population. There's the B allele, which gives them a brown coat, or an A allele, which gives them a yellow coat. So mice that have the B allele are brown, and mice that have the yellow allele are yellow. Okay, in generation 1, we see that there's an equal proportion of brown and yellow coated mice in the population. And let's say these mice live kind of in a mixture of a kind of dry, grassy area and well, let's just say they live in a, they live in a grassy area where there's a mixture of dry grass, which is brown, and more living grass, which is kind of a yellow-green color. So the brown mice camouflage really well with the dead grass, and the yellow mice camouflage quite well with the living grass. So between generation 1 and generation 2, nothing changes in the environment. And if we look at generation 2, we can see that the ratios of the A coat to the B coat, the brown coat to the yellow coat, is still 1:1. So between generation 1 and generation 2, there's no evolution, because the frequencies of the A and B alleles did not change. We still have a 1:1 ratio of each type of mouse. But now if we look between generation 2 and generation 3, there was a change in the environment. And now the environment was really dry. So now if you look at the proportion of the brown coated allele versus the yellow coated allele, we see that the B's outnumber the A's 2:1, where there are many more brown coated mice than there were before. So between generation 2 and generation 3, the population did experience evolution. because there was a change in allele frequency. Okay, also, notice something interesting has happened here. We have a new coat color. This, we now see, we see a C coat color, which is a black coat. Okay, so now this coat color, C allele, it just arose by random chance. One of the mice in generation 2, there was a DNA mutation that happened in either an egg or a sperm, and that egg or sperm successfully became a whole mouse, and now that mouse has a black coat. So we see that there is a C allele, or a black-coated mouse, within our population. Now, this didn't happen because the mice needed to have black coats. It just happened by random chance. And if black coats are a good fit for the current environmental conditions, then we'll see the C allele change its frequency in the next generation. And that's exactly what we see here. So now we have a ratio of A to B to C of 1 to 3 to 2. So again, between generation 3 and generation 4, evolution occurred because we see a change in the allele frequencies between generation 3 and generation 4. Okay, so big takeaways. Evolution only occurs when we see a change in allele frequency from one generation to the next. That's what evolution is. Individuals can't change their DNA, but random mutations can occur by chance. When these mutations are a good fit for the environment, we might see an increase in their numbers from generation to generation, so the population might evolve. It's also totally possible that instead of the environment staying dry and maybe black mice surviving, we might see these, if the environment got wet again, maybe the A type mice their numbers would bounce back as they were more successful, and we'd see elimination of the C-type mice from the population. So mutations occur randomly, and when they're a good fit for the environment, we see their numbers increase from generation to generation, and if they're not a good fit, then we don't. And I guess I should write down that this was a random mutation. Okay, that's all.